Halo Yawat, halo Yawat. Halo Yawat. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on smart budgeting and management. We're just going to give ourselves a few more minutes to get ourselves ready and have some other persons join us. I think we have just about 5 persons here, and we'll be sure to begin in 5 minutes. Thank you for your time. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on smart budgeting and management. We're just going to give ourselves a few more minutes to get ourselves ready and have some other persons join us. I think we have just about 5 persons here, and we'll be sure to begin in 5 minutes. Thank you for your time. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on smart budgeting and management. We're just going to give ourselves a few more minutes to get ourselves ready and have some other persons join us. I think we have just about 5 persons here, and we'll be sure to begin in 5 minutes. Thank you for your time. All right, and it seems as if it's going to take some time, but whatever the case, let's get started. Before we begin, I would like us to first of all go through this survey on this pre-survey. It's currently going to be displayed on your screen. You take the time to respond to the survey, and then we'll be sure to begin with this. And we have here, all right, and it seems as if it's going to take some time, but whatever the case, let's get started. Before we begin, the survey should be on your screens right now. Feel free to respond to it, and let's be sure to kickstart on a good footing. Respond to the survey, and then we'll be sure to begin with this. And we have here, all right, and it seems as if it's going to take some time, but whatever the case, let's get started. Before we begin, the survey should be on your screens right now. Feel free to respond to it, and let's be sure to kickstart on a good footing. There's a pre-survey running on the screen. Kindly just tend to that and respond to it, and let's see, get ourselves started for the meeting. If you need assistance, let me know. Survey running on the screen. Kindly just tend to that and respond to it, and let's see, get ourselves started for the meeting. If you need assistance, let me know. Thank you. 2 persons have responded to the survey. Thank you. 2 persons have responded to the survey. Okay, so we all have the persons who have responded, it all indicate their eagerness from this on budgeting and finance management.
Alpha.
Yeah, well, I'm fine. Good. We're just running the surveys at the moment. You can kindly attend to the survey on your screen as you just sign in, and let's get the demographics for the various before we kickstart the session.
Okay, it works. I'm doing it right now.
Okay, great. Good man. On budgeting and finance management.
Alpha.
Yeah, well, I'm fine. Good. We're just running the surveys at the moment. You can kindly attend to the survey on your screen as you just sign in, and let's get the demographics for the various before we kickstart the session.
It works. I'm doing it right now.
Okay, great. Good man. On budgeting and finance management.
Alpha.
Yeah, well, I'm Just at the moment, you can kindly attend to the survey on your screen as you just sign in, and let's get
Mm-hmm.
the demographics for the various before we kickstart the session.
It works. It works. I'm doing it right now.
Okay, great, good man. Okay, if you're just joining us, kindly respond to the survey that's on your screen, and we'll be sure to begin in under 2 minutes once the time frame for the survey is done. It was supposed to last us 7 minutes, and we have elapsed 5 minutes and 38 seconds towards that end. Just kindly complete the survey such that we get to measure a few demographics. Thank you. I can see the surveys all coming in. Thank you for your response. So far we've had most of the participants connecting from Africa, and they are all, we have 33% at full-time employees and 67 at part-time employees, and all responses so far. We've had current area of competency presence in arts and design, and health and wellness at 33%, arts and design at 33%, and then other at 33%. And current level of knowledge on budgeting, we have 67% beginners and 33% advanced. And we equally have a response here from reasons for learning about budgeting, and we have responses at 33% to improve personal finances, and 67% all of the above, which includes improving business organizational finances to satisfy their own curiosity or interests. And the last question which we have there is the main challenges or difficulties with budgeting, and we have 75% of participants say setting realistic goals, 40% saying estimating income and expense accurately, and 80% at creating and following a plan consistently, and 40% at reviewing and adjusting the budget as needed. And if you're just joining us, kindly just complete the survey which you have on your screen, and we'll be sure to begin. We have under 30 seconds to end this poll. Just do that and submit your responses, please. Great. At about elapses it now. Thank you very much for your response, and I really appreciate this. Just ending the poll. All right. Once more, welcome today to our webinar series on smart budgeting and management, presented by myself, the hosts, Stephen, and I will be here on air with Dr. Yawat and Sam Michel, who is my co-host. And the main idea for today's webinar is mainly to gain insights on how to draw up a budget and track income and expenditure on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, and even annually. Then make informed decisions on budget review based on budget reviews, and then forecast business and organizational needs as well as personal needs in that dimension. And thank you all for signing in and joining for the webinar. And just a few basic rules of engagement. When you're not speaking, you keep your mic muted. And if you wish to speak, raise your virtual hand and we'll give you the floor to speak. And you can just maintain silence when in session and then respect the facilitators who are on air. And if you equally have some other requests or some other attention which you wish to draw to our attention, you can always type in the chat box and we'll be sure to respond to you in time. And if you're in a noisy environment, leave a message in the comment section. And if you don't feel comfortable about sharing your video, that's fine. But if you feel comfortable sharing your video, you can always do that at your own discretion. And then you can keep your video up to conserve bandwidth for the length of the duration, because knowing fully well too from our demographics that most of us are connected from Africa here, we have lots of problems with connectivity and data, so we can use that to conserve bandwidth, and you'll help us to go through with that. And our preliminary considerations for today's session, I just want us to take some time to answer this question. And if you had joined us earlier, if you had received an email earlier concerning the webinar, we were encouraged to probably take down a few questions and prepare yourselves before today's webinar session. And just ask yourselves a few questions. Where does the money go? Who manages the money in your household? How do you want to live? What are your financial goals? How do you think you can achieve them? What is your relationship with money, debt, saving, and spending? Just take a moment to ask yourself these questions. And if you feel comfortable, you can just raise your virtual hand and I'll give you the floor to speak. Anyone? Feel free to raise your hand and you'll be given the floor to speak. Anyone at the moment? I'm still waiting for responses. Take the time to ask yourself the questions and let's see how far it goes with that, please. All right, well, I guess I can just shoot for the first part. The first question, which actually poses the question, where does the money go? or where does the money go? And we can see for the first part of it, we keep track of everything we spent every month, right? So what did you buy? How can you see a pattern in your spending habits? Where did you need, and what did you want? There's a difference between what you need and there's a difference between and what you want. So from where does the money go? It's asking yourself the question, what was it that you needed and what was it that you wanted? And did you indulge yourself in buying the things that you want, or simply buying or spending on things that you need? And this helps us to understand the question, where does the money go? And the next question too, where does your money come from? And you notice that the money equally comes from sources like your jobs, maybe your job, your salary. It could be from your parents. It could be from investments. If you're into business and you notice that you probably invest to on certain ends in order to make ends meet. And that's another source to us to respond, that can help you to respond to the question, where does the money come from? So having asked ourselves this question, what type of life do you want for yourself? What are your financial goals? The reason we are asking this question is because goal setting is one of those very key areas which you get to understand that it will help us in order to make effective budget decisions. And so moving on to that, I just want us to first of all understand what a budget is. And a budget is a written plan. A budget is a written plan for spending and saving. It could be for daily, it could be weekly, it could be monthly, it could be yearly or annually, however you wish to put it through to yourself. And it helps us to make sure that we have enough money every month. Without a budget, we might run out of money before the next paycheck. And the budget has several things which it does for us as individuals. It puts us in control of our budget. That's the first thing you need to know, that the budget, you're in control of your budget and not your budget in control of you. It helps you to create a visual spending picture, and equally helps you to prevent impulse spending, and it helps you to decide what you need, what you can and cannot afford. And it enables you to track your expenditure and your spending or your expenses. And then equally helps you to create a saving plan. And it can equally help you to protect yourself against financial consequences of financial unforeseen circumstances or events. So in a nutshell, that's what a budget will help you to do. So a budget shows us how much money we make and how we spend that money. So why do we need a budget? Or why do you need a budget? Why do I need a budget? Each and every one of us needs a budget at one given point in time, and we've all been very versed with the usage of a budget. You have probably been using a pen, using maybe a sheet somewhere to, maybe you want to buy groceries, you want to buy foodstuff, you probably produce a list at home, and that list helps you to estimate what you need in order to spend. And basically, that's what your budget simply looks like. That written plan that helps you to see, okay, if I need to maybe produce, cook maybe food, for example, let's say fried rice, for example, you probably need several items. And then you need to start putting down those items on a little sheet or a piece of paper in order to see what you have. And then you match that with respect to what you have at hand. And so that budget, it's why do we really need it, is because it helps us to determine how much we have to spend, and then to decide how much, how we want to spend that money. And it equally helps us to determine how we wish to spend in the future. And then it helps us to live on less than on our available income, and then to stay within the means of our income. And it helps us to equally stay out of trouble by getting into debts. And most importantly, it helps us to distinguish between needs and wants. And like I indicated earlier on, your needs are very different from your wants. Your needs are the things that you know you cannot do without. For example, you need a roof over your head. You need lighting, and then you need shelter. You need clothing. You need food. These are the things that you need. Then the things that you want may be extra clothes, which you need, which you want, and then maybe a pair of extra shoes and a pair of extra things which you equally just wish to have for yourself. Those are the things that you want. And then maybe a Rolex watch, the next iPhone that is out on the market. Those are things that you want. It's not actually something that you need. Because if you're looking at your budget and you're actually asking yourself the question, how do I actually optimize saving? You'd start cutting down on some of the things that are luxurious for you. And we'll get later on to the details about some of the types of expenses that we can equally incur. So on our focus of today, which was smart budgeting. Smart budgeting simply comes from the word smart itself, which simply means when you say someone is smart, the person is proactive. The person can equally act on, doesn't act on impulse, but the person actually reflects well enough and acts promptly. And based on that, we are going to use the SMART model here. And SMART has for itself, it's an acronym that stands for S, M, A, and RT. S, which stands for SMART, for specific. Your budgeting goals should be clear and well-defined, not vague or general. And then, for example, you can see, for example, on the screen, an example of what a specific budgeting goal looks like. I want to save money. You should say, I want to save money. You should say, I want to save money. I want to save 5,000 francs for a vacation in 6 months. That's what makes it specific. If I just say I want to save money, I'm not actually helping myself towards that regard. And to make your plan much more specific, you identify the criteria that make that particular plan much more specific. Like, I want to save 5,000 francs for a vacation in 6 months, or in 3 months, or in 2 months, or I wish to pay for my tuition fee in 3 installments. And I wish to save maybe about $2,500 every month towards that dimension. And your goal equally needs, your smart budgeting goal here equally needs to be measurable. Measurable in the sense that you ask yourself, you have a way of tracking your progress and you measure your success. Now, for example, have a savings account where you can deposit your money and see how much you have saved each month. And likewise, the next on our SMART goal is A, which needs to which translates to attainable. Are your budgeting goals attainable? Here, you need to be realistic, not too easy or too hard. Have a plan on how you reach your goal, then cutting your costs, increasing your income, or investing wisely. Just like for the example which I highlighted earlier about you making a list for groceries or for foodstuff, you actually need place maybe the money you have just about 1,000 in your hand to actually prepare a very good meal. But you equally have to put down those points on a piece of paper to see if the type of meal you wish to prepare can fit within that particular budget. So you need to be realistic about it. And you're realistic in the sense that you're looking at what is available at the market. At the level of the market, can this particular quantity of foodstuff cost this particular amount? You're asking yourself those questions. And for a student who works part-time, for example, it's most likely that you cannot afford a car all of a sudden in just a couple of years, for example. Where do you actually take the money from in order to help you do that? And an example too could also be, I want to start an automatic deposit savings account with monthly withdrawals for my from my check for my savings and for my earnings. And then you can equally tend to use a smart budgeting to make it much more realistic and attainable, which can help you to monitor your progress and adjust your plan as needed. And then this will lead you to use budgeting in a very wise and smart way, that means it brings us to the next point, which is relevance. How relevant is your budget? It should be meaningful and important to you, not for others, or relevant to your situation, or irrelevant to your situation. It needs to be relevant to your situation. Have a reason or a motivation for saving, for example. Maybe it should be to fulfill your dreams, to secure your future, or to improve your quality of life as an individual. Are you tired of overspending? Are you tired of making coming back every end of the month and you notice that you've spent every amount of your money on other things that you don't need, and then you're stuck in the same spot every time? And then the last aspect of our SMART goal is that your budget needs to be time bound. You should have a deadline or a time frame. That it's not an indefinite or open-ended period, like you just tell yourself, I'm going to save money, and then you don't tell yourself for the duration for which you wish to save that money. So you tell yourself, I want to pay off my credit card within the next 18 months, or I wish to increase my revenue within the next 3 months or 2 months, or I wish to invest in this particular business, etc., etc. So the next point here is the budgeting process. I believe this is what most of us here have been looking forward to. That's why we are here. How do we get about making the budget? I've talked about the SMART goals, how they need to be specific, how they need to be measurable, how they need to be attainable, how they need to be realistic, and then how they need to be time bound. So based on this is the crux of the matter. How do we really make a good budget? So I want us to take the mnemonic, what it takes, CEB. If you can remember this, it's one of the things that you take for the rest of this webinar session. That's awesome. CEB. The first C says choose a budget period, monthly, quarterly, or annually. Monthly could simply be a month. You have 4 weeks in a month, or you can decide to do it on a weekly basis, that you equally wish to create a budget that simply tracks your weekly expenditure and your weekly income. This is pretty very much okay for persons who are into business and entrepreneurship. And then on a monthly basis too, you can equally evaluate yourself based on the accumulated weeks that have passed. And you can equally decide to do it on a quarter. And a quarter now could simply be maybe a period of 3 months. In a year, you have 4 quarters. And in that year, and those 4 quarters will be split into 3 months apart. That you have month 1, month 2, month 3, and then that makes up 1 quarter. You can decide to track your budget quarterly, and you can decide to track your budget annually. The next part of our CEB is estimate expenses and income. What this simply translates to is that, excuse me, you need to estimate what you need at hand. What is it that I would want to get? What is it that I will need to get in order to make ends meet for myself? And how do I go about doing it? That's what this aspect of your budget comes in now in place. You will definitely need to writing down some of those things that you need, those expenses that you wish to spend on, etc. Then the next is balance your expenses and your income. In balancing your expenses and your income, you're asking yourself the question where you prioritize your goals, and then you make sure that you meet them at the point where you wish to actually live much more free and not feeling pressured. So on that, the next thing which we need to focus on CEB is, what is your period range or goal? Here is short-term goal, which could be 1 to 4 weeks. We've grouped that it could be weekly or a monthly. And then long-term goals, which could be 2 to 12 months. And then a quarter equally falls within this section, because like we explained what a quarter is, you'd see that equally falls within 3 months within a year. And then long-term goals could be 1 year or longer, maybe 5 years, 6 years, 10 years. And it could fall under annually plans, which you actually make for yourself. So estimating your expenses and your income. By estimating your expenses, you're equally forecasting your needs. Like forecasting is like looking to the future of what you actually want to achieve. What is it that you wish to attain in the future? That's what this forecast now comes in to tell us to do. So like last year, my salary added up to about $30,000. And I want to be able to draw up and make an estimate for my income. I know that, okay, I'm based on my salary, my annual salary is $30,000. So I need to estimate what I actually get as an income on a monthly basis. I break down that 30,000 by 12 months to give me an amount which is fixed for that particular, for just 1 month. And then I could still further break down this 2,500 by 4 and then get the dividend which is necessary for me to simply plan my budget within a week. And then you can see how you can start matching your expenses based on your income on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis. So at the end of the day, you had 2,500 francs every month, and you can equally further break that down in order to get what you need. So balance your expenses and your income. This now equally translates to what we call a review. Oftentimes, after you've estimated you've estimated what you need, and then you've put it down in writing, and I still insist on putting it down in writing, because that's the whole essence about budgeting. If you don't put it down in writing, you have it in your head, you think that you will remember it. It's a very poor way of actually making a very good plan. It's a very good way to prepare yourself for failure. So each month, compare your income to your expenses. You see what you actually planned or you forecasted, and then what you actually spent. If your actual expenditure is far above your income, it's not very good for you. It means you're overspending. So you continue reworking your budget in such a way that until the point where your income is greater than your expenses. That way you are able to say, yes, I can then take the excesses of that budget and then I put it into a savings account or I invest it in something. So have regular review meetings to evaluate your spending and forecast your needs to align your current income. That's one very key and important thing which you need to do. And then you discuss your different budget options which are available. Discussing these various options which are available will help you to cut on your expenses. And then we'll soon get to the Excel worksheets shortly, such that we can also appreciate how we go about doing the budgets fully. So I just want us to first of all take a few points here. I've talked about income. I've talked about expenses. But your income here is money that you as an individual or as a business owner or a business or an organization receives in exchange for providing labor or for providing services or investing your money in something. That's simply your income. Then your expenses could be broken down into 3 main categories. You could have your expenses which are fixed, and the fixed expenses here are those expenses that are unavoidable. You cannot do without them. In which case, the amount you must pay maybe on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, depending on how you have that plan. You have that plan for yourself. And those type of fixed expenses could be things like your house rents. And it could equally be your house rents and what else am I leaving out? All right, variable expenses. That's what I was thinking of. Variable expenses. These variable expenses are things that are also necessary and unavoidable, but the amount, but that amount, it's something that that can vary over the months. As the name simply implies, it varies, it's variable. So it can change over time. For example, utilities, for things like data connection. You're actually connected on this webinar using data. And since you're using data, those are things that change. Maybe in a week, you can spend 1,000 to 2,000 francs on data. And in other weeks, you can find yourself spending less. So it varies with time. And then lastly, you have discretionary expenses. Discretionary expenses are those expenses that can be avoided. You can decide to avoid those expenses. There could be things like your like your luxuries or your nice to have things or goods, your shoes, your new cakes, your bags, etc. Those are things that you can actually avoid and you don't really need them. You don't really need them. So you mostly see that between these sets of expenses, variable expenses and fixed expenses, those are the things that you actually need and they are unavoidable. Some change, some are fixed. So that said, I'll just like us to look at one last aspect again on the budgeting process here, which is creating a budget and managing it. The first part here, which would soon do it on the Excel sheet, which I'll soon share my screen with you all, is to create a spreadsheet or get an app for budgeting. That's very important. And the resources for this would be shared to you too, such that you can be able to have this particular spreadsheets for your own personal use in order to set up your own budget at your own convenience. I do hope that gets to meet your own needs for budgeting. And then that spreadsheet could be an Excel spreadsheet. For those persons who are not very used to the computer, you could probably use a ledger. You get a ledger, you roll down, have two columns for yourself, an expense column and an income column. And on that, you actually list down the set of expenses that you have, and then the list of income that you have. And then you cross-match these expenses through monetary values and with the income that you have to see what you need and what you don't need. I believe at one point in time, it seems like I'm talking to myself. Are we all together?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Just such that I'm able to convey the atmosphere. Great. All right. Thank you for that feedback. So you need to identify your resources. Start by calculating your monthly income. So like I said earlier, you calculate your monthly income. Where does your money come from? That was the first question which we asked from the beginning of this webinar. Where does your money come from? You think of the fact that your money comes in from the salary. For those of you who actually don't work for some other person, but you're entrepreneurs yourself and you're doing it solo and on your own, the first thing that you notice
Hello, everyone. Please, we just lost Steven. I will just plead for us to exercise some patience to wait for him to come back. He's the main presenter, so I don't have some slide. If I could have had the slide, I will do the presentation properly. Please, let us just exercise some patience. Thank you in advance.
Sorry about that. I lost connectivity there briefly for a moment, and I'm back just a moment such that I get back on track. Sorry about that inconvenience.
Okay, I was about to call you, bro.
Thank you, man. Sharing my screen and all right, so you should have that online there with you in under a few seconds. Yeah, we're back up. Okay, so I left up at the point where I said, consider what's important to you and prioritize your expenses. And then you list your expenses, fixed, variable, and discretionary expenses. I think I already said a lot about that. And then you can compare your income versus your expenses to see whether your monthly income covered your monthly expenses. Now it's time for us to do the mathematics. And so I am just going to share with you my Excel spreadsheet here, such that we can all see how that is actually done practically. Okay. All right, so I do have here with me my spreadsheets. Is it visible to everyone? Cynthia, Yawat, Engabet, is it visible? Okay, thank you.
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. So there we go. That's my monthly budget summary. I just took the liberty of doing this, and you would receive all these resources to equally help you track your budget. And then you can always take your time to equally insert cells, which is something you can simply do later on if you wish to, and then you can see how your budget simply pans out there. But this particular area of the budget here simply budget totals, estimated, actuals, difference. The difference here is simply the income minus your expenditure, and then you get the difference from the other side here on this other column. And then on the other side here for actuals, that's what you actually spent for the month, as opposed to what you actually estimated. So like you can see from this other column here, you'll notice that on my income, I had estimated 493,000, but my actual income stood at 597. 404,750. Then the difference between that is 404,750 francs. That gives me the difference for my budget. And then based on this two again, you can equally see that the personnel expenses, this is a budget for me that not just simply tells me about CIP training program. Remember the heading says channeling intellectual potential program at the top there. So it's just like a sample budget for what we use at CIP, where we get something for personnel, where we get something for operating expenses. And each one of these is highlighted on these tabs below here. If you can see, there's an income tab, there's a personal expense tab, and there is an operating expense tab. Now, under the income tab, I get to write down everything about the income within this. And the income which I get from this is based on where the sources of my own income. For example, personal income, it may come from my personal source because this is something which is self-funded, and it comes equally from either Dr. Yawat or myself, and then we all sum that together as a lump sum, and then we put it down. So we had estimated about 470,000 to run for a particular period of 3 months, because we actually do the budget every 3 months. And then the actual, which we realized or were able to put in or plow into this because we foresaw that there may be a need, was about 57,670. Remember, this is just imaginary. It's not the actual budget that we're working on. It's not my actual budget. So please take note about it. It's best for me to do that. This is just for explanatory purposes. And then we had 567,000, which was actually achieved. And this is the difference at 970,000. Then we equally had things like donations. Some other donated to the cause, but we have not estimated anything on donations. So somehow, because we're not very certain, it's not something that you're very certain about, unless you've applied for something. Yes, you're expecting it, but we did not apply for any, so we're not expecting. But somehow we received 4,500 francs. For 500 francs, 4,500 francs, or dollars if you wish to, whatever currency, just feed in the currency in there, and then we had that in as our actual for that particular month. And then for the interest income, maybe interest that resulted from some of the subscriptions that we've had, that interest, we're estimating that it will probably yield 3,000, which is something which is calculatable. Yes, it yielded 3,000, so we have a zero difference. Then for service rendered, we had maybe services which we render, like some of the webinars which we host online like this, or maybe teaching some other persons privately. That helps us to get a small budget. That helps us to get some small revenue income. We estimated it at 20,000 based on the number of persons who had subscribed for particular lessons. So we're actually expecting 20,000 funds. But somehow, one person didn't pull through, or several persons didn't actually pull through, and then we received only 15,750. Those type of setbacks happens at time, and you probably equally need to follow up to see that that gap is bridged. So we are at a difference of 404,250. Then for assets and sales, which we could equally be like, we can sell off some of our assets which we've used, maybe a used up computer that we are no longer using, and then we decide to maybe put it up on sale, or we feel that we've reached a useful lifespan to actually have the best optimal performance of that laptop. So we decide to put it on the market for sale. So we sell off that asset, and then maybe we get 7,500 out of it. It could not just necessarily be a laptop. A laptop would be much more expensive than that, but that's just an example. And then we get that for the difference here. So that equally totals up and then gives us our total estimated budget and then our total actual budget. Then now this gives us the difference at the end, which says we are standing on a positive footing of 104,750 francs, which is another very huge part here. So we can decide to invest this in another venture that will help to yield more income for us. So the next two goes for our personnel expenses. If you don't understand anything, please feel free to raise your hand, your virtual hand, and we'll be sure to give you the floor to simply ask your questions. This is one of those moments where you actually take the time to ask the questions if you don't get anything clear on budgeting. So personnel expenses here, simply as the persons who work with us, we need to pay them. we had estimated that we're going to work with 4 persons at the moment. So each one of those 4 persons was entitled to 30,000 francs or to 30,000 every month. So 4 by 30 gives us 120. And the actual there, we actually had only 3 persons working with us at the end of the day. So we spent just 90,000. And then the difference is 30,000 it's left. Then for employee benefits which accrue because of the persons who we employ to work with us, then you equally had that those benefits were budgeted at 12,000, which simply translates to same 4 persons, but because it's 4 persons and we actually had just 3 persons working, it now doubles up to 9,000, which we have as an actual expenditure, and then we are saving up 3,000. The same too goes for commissions. Then for commissions here, we had planned maybe 5,000 per 4 persons. That gives us 20,000. Yet we had just 4 persons with us, so we had 15,000 spent and 5,000 saved. So that's it on total expenses, and then you can actually see we've actually saved up to about 38,000 francs based on what we had budgeted for personnel expenses. One thing you need to understand about expenses are expenses are things that you already persons have already rendered a service and you need to actually pay them for. And that's why personnel services falls as one of those examples for the services that workers that we've employed, we need to pay them for. And that's it's very necessary for us to actually have that to register it. And then the next there is operating expenses, like all what we need in order to carry out operations during the CIP program's budget for the month of September. And in that month of September, we could have advertisings, like maybe what we need in order to produce the adverts that we put up on social media, etc. We had estimated 3,000 francs, but we actually spent 2,500 francs. Now, this tells something about the power of bargaining. You can always estimate something a little bit higher, but when you get to the market, it's always good to bargain to have a good price for your money. That's very, very important. Let's not try to forget that. You're always trying to make sure you stay within your budget. So it's necessary for you to always make sure you get a very good bargain from the persons who get you services. Or maybe you're a repeat customer, you ask for a discount for the persons who actually does adverts for you if you're not doing it on yourself, on your own privately. And then you have things like bad debts that some other persons have probably taken, and you just know that it's not going to come back. For example, at times I always say it's not good to do business with family, because when you do business with family, you always translate to a bad debt. They take a loan from you and it's all of a sudden they don't want to actually pay. Another example of bad debt is probably somebody who pays off, who took maybe a loan from you and you didn't actually have a collateral on that person. And that debt actually, the person probably leaves country and then cuts communication off. You're not expecting that money anytime soon. It's a bad debt. So you actually just have to record it as a bad debt actually. So you actually wasted money on that particular end. Then you have transportations, which we consider, okay, each person in the organization working with you, or you as an individual, you have to budget for yourself for the month. What do I need on transportation? You put that down and then you get that through. I think if I need to explain all this, I'll probably take up a lot of time. But as you can all see, we have something on delivery costs. Delivery costs could be costs like cost for mailing, or for maybe doing things on what do they call it again? Mailing services through airmail or through compose, etc. Those are things that you can put on the delivery costs here, and then depreciation to actually track the depreciation of your goods along the time, along the process of your organization's lifespan. And then you have dues and subscriptions. For example, for us, we have a subscription for Zoom, which we actually pay in order to be able to host webinars in this dimension. So we actually subscribe for a yearly package or a monthly package. That subscription all amounts to that particular amount. That's why it's estimated around you, and then have something you actually spend a little bit more because of things like variations in taxes, and variation in taxes which you might incur when you actually pay for your subscriptions, because you have the amount which is there. It's a fixed amount that you need to pay, but at the same time you see that the currency value goes up or it actually goes down. When it goes down, it's good for you, it's profit for you. But when it goes up, it's bad business for you. That's a typical example of what can happen under things like subscription, especially subscriptions that are not within your country. It makes things difficult for you. And that's one of the setbacks which we're able to equally get. So you get a difference, a negative difference there. Then insurance services, which you get to insure. Probably you insure at the start of the maybe at the start of the financial year, but we definitely will not do that again. But I just did it, for example, and we estimated for it, but we don't actually need it, so we didn't actually spend anything. Interests, and then legal and auditing, and then have maintenance and repairs, which all speaks for itself. Office supplies, the supplies that you need in order to run the office. Postage, you need to post maybe mails, etc. Then rents and mortgage. Then you have service expenses, you have shipping expenses, supplies, taxes, telephone, utilities. Utilities here has to do with water, electricity, and it has to do with lighting. And may equally have to do with heating for the persons who need to heat their homes. Maybe you have to buy firewood because you're living in a place like Du, which is probably very cold, and you need to need help for that. And then we just had received the Excel sheet. Please, I hope we will receive the Excel sheet. Yes, Dr. Yawat, you will all receive the Excel sheets. I'm sending it immediately after I'm done with this, such that you can all see how to make use of that. And well, that one other key area which is very important, the aspect of other miscellaneous. This area covers up most of what you need in order to some of the unforeseen things which you do not plan as a result of the month. So you just always try to make sure you save a little bit much more on this very particular area. And then if you spend less, you actually save more. Then you can equally plow back that capital into your business, maybe to get new goods for sales, or maybe to get much more persons to render you services that equally translates into more money for you. Or you could simply invest in another venture that can bring you more revenue. So basically, once you've filled out all of these things from operating expenses, personal expenses, and your income, it now comes up to your monthly summary budget sheet here. On your monthly summary budget sheet here, you have all the details here, and you can equally track it here at this bottom here for the budget review. Like you actually see on my income, I planned or I forecasted that I was going to spend something between 500,000, but what I actually received was about 6,000. So that keeps me at a good footing. That means I have about 100 and something more to save. Then for personal expenses, I actually estimated more, but I spent less. And then for operating expenses, it actually shows that you actually estimated more, or you forecasted more goods, more services to be rendered, or more service on your operations line to be rendered, but you actually spend less, which is still very good for you. So I'll just leave it at this point in time, and I'll take some of the questions and the answers that you may have towards this very particular webinar. I guess I am right on time. But before we do that, there was one other person who talked about budget compliance. That is the due to which your actual spending and your income match your planned budget spending and income. So how do you do actually get a budget compliance? You need to set SMART goals from the beginning, and then with SMART objectives, then estimate your income and expenses accurately and realistically. Then you track your income and expenses daily and monthly using receipts, bank statements, apps, spreadsheets. It's very, very important for somebody to come in, like an auditor, to come and audit your business, or to help to audit your business. They will need a foot trail of that money. And it's your invoices that you give out for services that you've rendered, and it's your receipts which you receive for goods that you've actually bought, or for some service that you've actually purchased. Those receipts are all there to help keep a paper trail of all what you're able to spend so far. And then review and adjust your budget regularly, then follow the rules and regulations that are based on budgeting. Then seek professional advice or assistance if you need it. This is what budget compliance is all about. So if you're stuck somewhere, don't always say, I know it all. Ask questions and get the help that you need. So I'll leave this now for questions and for reactions from you all. And thank you too for listening to me throughout the session. Any questions, reactions, contributions, etc.? While you are at that, let me share with you the budget sheets. Any questions, please?
Hello. Thank you, Stephen, for your very, very, very interesting presentation. In fact, it was very, very useful for me, particularly because your presentation was like I was seeing a HR doing the calculation of my monthly salary. In fact, that's how like where is my money going? This is where the money is entering. This is where the money is coming. So I will plead with you, please, if there are like some very practical example that you can easily figure out for it to be like homework. It will be very, very interesting, because this aspect of the calculation process is very, very crucial, because if you have all your elements and put them together, trust me, you will have a very good way of managing your budget.
That's true.
So I will plead for you to put it in our living frequent daily basis, so that all these things you were putting in dollars for, dollars, whenever you see dollars, it seems like we are not in Cameroon. So we should go and put the Maggi and the salt in the sauce for it to make it look really, really, really practical.
Yeah, thank you, Yawad. I was equally taking the demographics based on the persons who had registered for the webinar. So I had to use a common currency that would probably cut across. That was the reason why I was using dollar. But along the line, you saw me mention in francs, because it's what I'm used to on a daily basis.
Sure.
Yeah, Engelbert, your hand is up. You have the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. And it was very interesting. I have a question to ask regarding to planning your budget. What if your source of income, you don't have a fixed source of income, like you get your income from, let's say, activities that are not defined, you see? How do you calculate that and insert it into a good budgeting plan?
Well, that's a very great question, Engelbert. First, a good number of us do not actually have a fixed source of income or a fixed pot of money where we can simply just go to and then get our activities done. But what is it that you're good at? It's the first question that you ask. Please just come again one more time. I probably think I've missed out the point. I focused on listening on some other thing and I missed out that. Please come again.
Okay, it's understood. The question is, what if you don't actually have a fixed source of income? Like you don't like a salary, you don't have a salary, and your income comes in from the various activities that you engage in, which are not certain to pay out within the estimated time possible.
Okay.
So,
yeah, it's okay. Now, that simply paints a picture which I think it's a dilemma that most of us are equally facing at a given point. I've just shared no, not with that. Just a moment, please.
Stephen.
Yeah.
If I got Engelbert question, in fact, the element of response that I can give to Engelbert question is, as he said, those people who don't have a permanent monthly salary, it will be difficult for them to apply our measures, because there are daily incomes vary from the type of activity they perform. So he will put a target that I will save 5,000 daily. But it come at the end of the day, he doesn't even have 2,000 francs. So at that moment, he has failed for the target of the day. So in fact, this type of activity varies. This budgeting aspect is very, very good for those who have a very permanent monthly income. For those who are like, how they call it, sauveteur in our common language, it will be difficult for them to really apply it deeper into the context. Because their incomes is daily, not monthly. But even though there are some others that at the end of the month, they can easily earn a huge amount of money that those who are expecting a monthly income will receive. But at that moment, the way that those who receive monthly salary will discipline themselves in their own aspect, the discipline will be very, very extreme, because he knows that every blessed day he will have 10,000 francs, like he's saving money. He can just say, okay, let me eat all these 10,000, tomorrow will be another day. So with those type of people, they need to really, really have an extreme methodology way of living.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you. I would have added to what you've just said in the sense, persons who don't have a very fixed income oftentimes will find it very difficult. But budgeting is something that even works for each and every one of us. Though it may be difficult because you don't know where your money is coming from, but you equally have services that you're able to render. And if you have services that you're able to render, you're sure that those services can maybe pay off, maybe a dividend or something of that sort. Now, this brings us to a point where you probably need to maybe start thinking of maybe a source of income, for example, like maybe investing in something that you get, or maybe you can take a loan and then invest in something that you're very certain that will probably pay off within a given period of time. And then you pay back that loan and then save some more and then plow back the savings into your business in order to make out much more out of the sales, or to equally boost your income as a result. I always like to take this very particular practical example. Like, for example, in secondary school, we used to sell galette in school, and we didn't have the income, so I actually had to borrow the money from maybe my mom or so. And then when you borrow the money from her, then you have to go buy this galette from the store. Then from the store, maybe you buy it at 2,500 francs. Then you sell in school and you make a profit of about, you sell in school during break, you make a profit of about 3,000 francs. That means you make a profit of about 500 francs. That profit now, I save it into a small bank such that it helps me to keep track of my savings. And then I record it somewhere in a piece of paper, like, okay, yeah, I know I have 500 francs now extra. But I've equally given my mom about 1 month's period to pay back that loan of 2,500 francs, which I took from her. Then that same set of money which I get back the 2,000 francs. That means I got something at 2,000 francs I sold, and I sold everything, having money in hand, 3,000 francs, and then I save 500 francs. Then I take back the same 2,500. I go back to the market to purchase another. So if I do that 5 times in 5 days, which is 5 school days, which we're in school, I'm actually able to raise 2,500 francs to get 2 packets rather than 1. Because the demand is high, the demand is actually high because it often gets finished before I even know it. And it's just about 15 pieces of it within a packet. So before you know, you sell to 15 persons, and then people are like, Masa, why is it that you get that thing just so small? So you decide to up the packets which you have. You get 2 packets now, and you're selling 30 packets and making 1,000 francs profit, and then saving that 1,000 francs profit. So if you do that consecutively for 5 days, you have 5,000 francs profit in hand. That gives you enough revenue to pay back your loan of 2,500 francs, which you got from mom, and then pay back that loan, and then you keep yourself 2,500 francs. certain that you're sure to still continue, or you could simply triple the profit and then pay off your debts in 4 weeks, and then you see how you equally plow back that capital. This is just a simple practical example, and this is how I would like every one of you to reason budgeting and income from. Oftentimes we are seeing it, looking at it too big from the bigger picture because we want to deal with bigger figures and with bigger things. But the basic little examples of how we serve and save money and earn money are the rudiments, are the basics of what it means to actually be alive with outlets. That's a typical example. And if you've noticed too, most of the women who are into some of these things like buy and sell, you find them, they do the same thing every now and then. They actually take the risk of taking a loan, and then they take that risk, take that loan, and then plow that capital into their business, and they're able to reap a huge profit out of it, and then pay off their debts, pay off the loans which they are taking, which equally their debts. So just like on the expense sheet which I shared earlier, there was a section for debts that you have incurred. It's equally your place to see how you actually pay off those debts. I don't know if I've answered your question, Engelbert.
Yeah, I got your points. So this brings me to the understanding that no matter the source of income, no matter the circumstance, effective planning on a budget is of relevance to handle this kind of issues. And then keeping track of your records too is another important point that I got to take note from your explanation and that of Dr. Yawat, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you very much.
And any other reactions from the other participants? Any other reactions? And then in the chat box, I've just shared with you a copy of the budget, such that you can be able to.
Well received.
Okay, that's, you can be sure to see what you need from there. And then I'm equally sharing with you a list of resources too, which you would use for your personal studies, that would help you towards gaining some of a basic understanding of other concepts that we were discussed, because we just a limited time frame of an hour. So you have that from so I would share that shortly, but while we are doing that, I would like us to take a survey. I'm about to share the survey with you all, such that you can all take the survey and we see how it helps us to focus on getting, maybe for those persons who may probably need excuse me, persons who may probably need a certificate at the end of this session. You can let us know, and then after the survey, it will help us to know who needs and who doesn't, and then we can just a moment. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, please ask. We're open for reactions. We just had one reaction from one of the participants, and I'm looking forward to other reactions from others, if there are any, please. Any reactions? Silence means everyone is okay. Dr. Yawad, any inputs?
Sorry, bro, I did not get you well.
Any inputs from your end?
I think you said it all. I think you said it all. The most beautiful part of the presentation was where we went into the practical process. That one really makes it very, very practical, because I don't think from what you just presented. So anyone can go now in his calm moment and try like to figure out what all his expenses and try to see how far he have been managing his own personal budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for those inputs. And is the survey on your screen yet? Are you able to see it?
Not yet.
Why? Goodness. I think I'm sharing it already, but it's... Let me stop and then see if I do it again.
I can see post-survey responses. What is the first step of developing and managing a smart budget?
Yeah.
That's what is displayed on my screen.
Post-survey, right?
Yes. Post-survey responses.
I think what you want to share is
no. What I'm sharing right now,
Google form, right?
It's not a Google form. It's actually a survey on Zoom that we can use in order to track responses.
No, if that's the case, you have not. You just posted the.
Ella.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm sharing it in the chat section there for you all. Just kindly click on the link and then complete the survey quickly, and then we will be sure to move on to the next part such that we are able to appreciate the persons who need a certificate at the end of this. I've just shared the link on once you're done, click on submit, and I'll be sure to receive the response at the end. Thank you. I think that way will be better. Can we all see it?
Yeah.
Just kindly click and then load it. Let's see. Respond to that, and we move on.
I lost you there for a second.
Yes, I'm sharing a survey, and the survey is on the screen at the moment, on the chats, in the chat box. I just posted in the chat box such that you can be able to attend to it. Then this is the survey. I'm sharing my screen right now such that you can all see the questions of the survey at the bottom
actually,
there.
what you sent to us it's showing that the meeting is an error.
Okay.
Meeting is not found or has expired. That's what it's showing.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know if the other weaknesses is the same thing.
No, I didn't get that. I lost connectivity. Coming back, everything was clear. The chat box is clear.
Okay. This now is probably getting a little bit too longer. So I will just kindly, if you equally just need to do this next and